so I'm Jen McCullough from Faulkner. I have the pleasure of introducing Robin Sullivan. She is an online learning specialist and instructional designer for the Center for Educational Innovation at the University of Buffalo, and her role includes the development and implementation and evaluation of online learning initiatives. She serves as a resource to faculty and the departments seeking to supplement instruction in the development of high-quality online courses, hybrid courses, and degrees. And she also facilitates a university-wide culture of exploration and dialogue around online education. She received a Master of Library Science degree and a Master of Arts and Humanities interdisciplinary degree with a focus in education and communication design from the University of Buffalo. She serves as the director and principal investigator on Sony Tools of Engagement Project and the On-Demand Discovery Learning Professional Development. No further ado, there's Rob.
Thank you very much. Hi, everybody. Today, the session that I'm going to talk to you about, the title is Shifting Time, Space, Things, and Learning. And the slides are linked to from the TIF Talks website, and also there's a short link here. If you need to reach me after today's session, if you have any follow-up questions, I'm more than happy to talk with you. I included my contact information there also. So just to kind of set the stage a little bit, today we're going to talk about simulated experiences and how you might bring those types of experiences into a classroom and apply them with your students. Bringing back to one of the very earliest forms of a simulation, just going to bring an example of the cave paintings in prehistoric times. So you might anticipate that there was some kind of story that one person wanted to share with someone else, but that someone else might not have been there at the very same time and place. So they came up with a technology. It wasn't the pencil, which came a few years after that, but it was also, writing on the walls of a cave with some sort of media, whether it was animal blood or some other type of medium to draw these images. They were able to share stories. The great, hunting ground is around the corner, around the bend. Here's the types of animals that you'll find there. So just using visuals to share stories with others. Today, fast forward, you have the ability to use visuals, not like in Kathy's example where she talked about going to the encyclopedia and you would be able to cut out the images, or first go to the photocopier, cut out the images, get out the Elmer's glue, paste it down, and you have this really blurry black blob on your paper. You can now take what many of you possibly have in your pockets and take some really high quality photos. So if you have opportunities to witness an experiment or go someplace where your students have not been able to go with you, you can capture those images and bring them back and share them with your class or share them with somebody that's across the other side of the world. There's tools out there that will allow your students to find those images. Flickr, there's so many searches that you can use through Google search engines and many, many others, so that you can find examples of places, things, and objects to bring them to where you're at. I'm also going to talk a little bit about virtual reality and augmented reality and how you can use those for simulation. To give you a little bit of a definition or to try to explain the differences between those two. Virtual reality, you could be using some really expensive tool like a HoloLens or Oculus Rift. It's not likely we're going to get many of those into our classroom nowadays. But virtual reality tools are available, like this one. You get them $10, $20. You can also get Google Cardboard. And these, if you search hard enough, you might be able to get them down to just a couple dollars each and bring those into the classroom and share a virtual reality experience. I'll have these available during lunch and afterwards if you want to actually experiment. I have a couple apps that we can play with. The difference between virtual reality and augmented reality is with virtual reality, the device is on your eyes and it pretty much blocks out the rest of reality. With augmented reality, there's a place for the camera to see through the device so that if I'm looking through this lens, I might be able to see dinosaurs roaming in this space, or having objects that are planted into the real space, but they're virtual laid on top. So augmented reality would take the current bit of reality and add to it. The VR goggles, like the one you see here, they're going to be very prevalent. And by the year 2020, we're expecting about 200 million in sales, is one of the studies. It's really easy to find all kinds of pictures of participants with that awe look as they're looking through those lenses. You don't have to find a professional photograph. You see people, whoever used them, they're in that awe state as they're first putting them on. The Google Cardboard, you can also download plans from the internet, take a pizza box or any piece of cardboard, cut it out to the desired specs, and purchasing some really inexpensive plastic lenses, you can make your own Google Cardboard. Sometimes it's easier, they're so inexpensive now to just go on eBay, find a cheap price and get them that way. What you do is you just interlay a smartphone or a device into the cardboard, and it will take the images and make it so that as you turn, the space will turn with you. Image just shows you a little bit of what augmented reality could do, one of the examples. So if I had an augmented reality app on my device, I can hold up my tablet and I can look, okay, so that building was built in 1960, for example. I can look back, I can time travel. So what did that space look like before that building was in place? Or what is an example of what's underneath that paneling? So augmented reality can superimpose something on top of what's actually there. There's also some really interesting interactive technologies that use augmented reality. There's something called Elements 3D, or Elements 4D. And just last week I had an opportunity to recall, I didn't know my periodic table well enough. But if I had been able to learn about it using these little blocks, so you print a piece of paper out, you form that piece of paper into a 4-dimensional block, and then if you look at those blocks with your application, when you put two different periodic elements together, they will form the chemical reaction. And so they kind of interact with each other. That's just one example. Another example is if you look at, read a book with a child, those characters and the scene can be a 3-dimensional item that just takes itself up off the page. And you're looking what might look like a hologram, but it's very simple technology and very inexpensive, in many cases free. This is an example of virtuality. And the person in the back has on a t-shirt. If you're familiar with what a QR code is, that t-shirt is a QR code. Just happens to be shaped into the skeleton. If you look at that person wearing the t-shirt with the virtuality app, you can see the organs that are in the, on the person, where they are in relation to their actual body. You can see the heart beating. It's not the real person's heart, but you can see this animation, and it just brings that authenticity a little bit more. You're making it a little bit more realistic, simulating what it really might be like inside of there. 3D modeling and printing. Again, I took a class in college. I remember spending an entire semester just building a 30-second three-dimensional movie. Just had this little blob kind of rotating on the screen. At the end of the semester, that movie took my computer 3 days of rendering. It was 30 seconds long. Nowadays, I can take my smartphone, I can find any three-dimensional object, take a few pictures, and with the one of the apps, I can create a 3D model. 123D Catch is the app that's out there, and it's amazing the job that it'll do just by a few pictures. Once you understand how to manipulate that 3D environment, you can tweak it a little bit to make it a little bit more accurate. .3D printers. You can get one nowadays for just a couple $100. Bring it into your classroom. Now when you need some kind of part, you're building something in your classroom, those parts might be able to be created using 3D modeling tools like the 123D Catch or 3D Sketch from Google. And you can build that just layer by layer. It creates objects. Just read recently that they're, the full color printers are becoming much more available. Was at a presentation where they had a turntable, and they had people standing on that turntable, bigger scanner than a phone, but they were able to create mini-me's. So they were printing out little people. That one might not be as affordable for your classroom today, but come back in 10, 20 years and we'll talk. To simulate experiences, I think the medical field is probably one of the fields that is most benefited through the simulation aspects. And there are tools. There's something called an autonomous imaging, and it looks like a 6-foot-long iPad table. What you have on that table is renderings of the human body. This tool happens to use renderings from actual corpses, and you can take that table and manipulate it. Okay, so what happens if I pull off the skin? What's the next layer in there? What if I, what are the muscles in this area and how do they interact? Z-Space is a tool that they're using in the Buffalo schools, kind of exploring how it can be used. But one of the issues with these virtual reality headsets is that the students are often isolated in their own little world. If they can use the Google Expeditions that Angela was talking about earlier, that's an interactive experience where they're, you have your 20 students all looking at the same simulated location, but they are, all separate. This Z-Space allows them to be in a more collaborative space, so they're all looking at the same thing. Their eyes are able to connect with each other, and they're able to manipulate and take pieces off of the 3D model that's showing up on the screen that's actually coming up off of the screen, so it's more realistic. I also want to talk just a little bit about, it's always a good idea to try to get a more realistic experience. But there are times when making something more abstract will help understand the parts that make it. And so I have an example of a real picture of a heart on the left side of the screen, and then a diagram. So if I wanted to see where the pieces of the heart, where they interact, I can more clearly see the labels that are not in the real heart, they're not labeled. I can see how they interact and where each one leads to. So although you can nowadays more easily simulate many different environments, you have to think, when is it best to use that technology, and when is it best to use something in between, and when is it best to superimpose each other onto your environment. A lot of the tools that I mentioned in this presentation are available on a website that actually Kathy Gradle had helped to develop this site. It's called the Sony Tools of Engagement Project. The URL is up on the screen, but I also have cards that you can take back with you, that whenever you have the urge to learn, you can pull out this card and go to the website. And I'm just going to give you a real quick tour. So the Tools of Engagement Project is on-demand professional development, and it's online. So whenever you have a desire to learn a little bit more about some of the presentation technologies that are available, or about simulation tools, or any of the other sections that are on the site, you can come here. And this menu in the center for discovery activities just has all of the sections that are on there. So the section we talked about today is all about simulations. So you can go here and learn just a little bit about some of the tools, a little bit about simulations. There's an introductory section that will tell you a little bit about it. And there's always a second page that has curated resources. So we've had a team of faculty, instructional designers, librarians from across SUNY who have tried to take all those millions and billions of tools that are out there and find a few choices that we want to highlight. And so we've tried to narrow down to the best tools and tutorials and information about these tools that you can go and learn a little bit more about creating your own augmented reality app. Blipper is one I just learned about last week, and that is, they come and go so quickly, so the teachers and the community are helping to curate this content to be able to add new and relevant technologies as they come up. So this just shows a little bit about some of the simulations. And right now, there is a social network community that's attached. So even though you might not be in the same time and place as the other people that you're learning with, the faculty that are participating, instructors that are participating, are all online at the same time. Some are online at 3 in the morning, some are online when they're on vacation at the beach, but you're all able to interact and learn. We just received some additional funding to make this a global accessible MOOC. So everybody across the world, students and teachers alike, will be able to communicate and join groups to share their experiences. So the resources are linked to on the site. And I just wanted to close a little bit by saying that keep in mind that in order to simulate some of those experiences, my dad passed not too long ago, and he donated his body to science so that the students that are learning to become doctors had real, a real person to work on. But that's not always possible. So you need to be able to simulate those environments. And that's where these tools come into play, so that you can bring something to your students that you're not normally able to do in a simulated way. And so I just want to say thank you all for your time, and be happy to answer your questions after.